What I am saying is, if it is an interface, you cannot have, there is strict rules now. You cannot have the instance variable in. For example, I am trying to put up here some int I. I'm trying to create an I in variable I. So it is not allowed. But in the same way, I say I is equal to 90. Now it is allowed. What is happening? So I'm saying the instance variable cannot be created. But when I say int I is equal to 90, it is being created. It looks like as if it is an instance variable whose value is 90, which can be in any class, not like that. But basically, if you don't write here access modifier, what is the access modifier here? If you don't write access modifier, what is it?
Sir, public.
No, if you don't write, it is not public. If you have to create, if you have to in Java, there are two guys here. Admit. If you have to say something public, then you have to write public. Okay.
Sir, कल आपने बताया था ना कि normally default रहता है, but interface में public रहता है.
Good. Okay, you are talking about interfaces. That's nice. You're right. But if you're talking about interface, that is right. So you are giving actually the answer. That's good. I was talking about the normal classes. In normal class, it will be default. But you're right, Kaunan is one step ahead. That if it is an interface, then it is not default. You have to keep that thing in mind. It is public. You write it or you don't write it. It is a public, but it is not just only public. It is two more things here, which is if you don't write, it's still there. It is also static, because I'm not going to instantiate it, right? In abstract class, you also have the constructor, which can instantiate its own variables, instance variables. In an abstract class, we also have a constructor.
फिर क्या फायदा हमें इंटरफेस बनाने का जब हम इसमें स्टैटिक यूज करते हैं?
I will tell you na, that's why, because we want only the contract to be fulfilled. It is only to fill, like for example, we have application of it is like cloning and all. We will see that later on also. Application of interface, when we see that it is a cloning, you want to make the Java clone we have, and a lot of things we can do. But the first thing we'll learn what is an interface. Interface, we are saying, why are you guys not having camera? Zahid Beg, Basit, Sajid, Saifullah and Sophia.
सर इशू आ रहा है कुछ, ये इसमें हैंग हो रहा है, मैं भी कर रहा हूँ.
Try to open up the camera, because anybody not with camera,
Okay,
I will
sir.
remove that person. So public static int I equals to 90. It is not only static, it is also final. Now you write this or you don't write this. You write public static final, you don't write it. It is public static final. In normal classes, if you don't write the access modifier, it is default. But if here you don't write, it is public. It is what? Okay. And at all, if it has some methods, okay, say for example, I'm saying void show, there's a show method here. Okay. I cannot give body to it. I cannot give body to it, like in abstract method. So that means this method cannot be a normal method, but this method has to be what? Abstract. Okay, because you cannot give body to it. So it's an abstract method. You write it or don't write it, it is abstract. If you don't write it, it's not an issue. It will not show in any error, but it is doing it of its own, that it is not only public, it is public abstract. So these two things you will keep first in mind, that in interfaces, if at all you have some variables, these variables need to be public static final. And if there are any methods, they gotta be public abstract. Two things, got it, right? So if it is a public abstract, what does it mean? What does it mean if it's an abstract? Because abstract means it does not have the definition. It is only a declaration. So where will be the definition, Farsha?
Sir, in child class?
In the child classes. Fahima Guru Kagwa? In the child classes, right? In child classes, it it's a job child class to implement it, because if if at all is an abstract. But you have to understand that we could have an abstract method in the abstract classes that could be default, but here it is public. It is by default what? Public. If you don't write it or rewrite it, it is public. Now I may have another interface, INTF2. Okay, it could have its own some public static final. Final means constant. Hash define से आप करते हैं C में. Static आपको पता ही है कि instance के बगैर भी access कर सकते हैं. Public आपको पता ही है, it can be accessed anywhere in the Java environment. So B equals to say 200, and it has some method public static, also not static, abstract, public abstract. Okay, void, say for example display, it has this method display, right? Okay, and it is an abstract method. Okay, what is the problem here? Public static final int, मैंने नहीं लिखा इसको. Then I have to say some integer variable. Okay, and who is public is static and also the final. Now if I have an interface third here, INTF3, and I'm saying they extend INTF1. Now if I say like this, like in C++, what we use it to do, if I say INTF2, what do you guys say? That interface F3 extends. So it is like multiple inheritance. Like you have a one papa and second papa, and I got a one kiddo who has got a two parents, right? Inheritance from two parents. It is a multiple inheritance. There's something going from here also and going from here also. This was not allowed in Java. This was allowed in C++, but not allowed in Java, because then when we move forward and we see that ambiguity thing comes up. But here there is no ambiguity, as you could see. There are some people trying to come up. Let me see who's Rashid. So, because we are not having any concrete methods here, and only we have what is called as the static and final variables here. So it is not a big issue. Okay, so this is allowed here. In interfaces, multiple inheritance is allowed. Keep that thing in mind. Okay, so this is allowed. Clear. Now, what I am saying is that if I just complete this to remove this error, because I was not having the braces, that interface F3 is extending from interface F1 and interface F2. So it can extend means inherit from all other interfaces. So if you have a couple of or 10 interfaces, it can inherit from all the interfaces altogether. So multiple inheritance is allowed in case of interfaces, multiple inheritance. But if it's a normal class, that's not allowed, because that brings up that ambiguity thing. Now, if I have, say for example, also a class, say I have a class A, and I also want to interface is extending from the multiple interfaces, and now I want to also extend from this class A, and it is showing me the error. Can you tell me why this is an error? Why the heck this is an error? Think about it. Because in interfaces, what is allowed? A method which is public and abstract, a variable which is not variable but a constant, which is public, static, and final. Not a variable. Variable is not allowed. Constants are allowed. Public, static, final, right? But if I am saying that it is inheriting from a class, and class can have anything, so all those roles can break now. If I allow to extend from the class A can have some normal variables. Int h, which is a normal variable. Now this h can inherit from A into this interface, which is not allowed. It could have the concrete methods, this class A. It can have anything. Now, if it extends from A, all those things can go into interface which are not allowed. So therefore, you cannot inherit from a normal class. You cannot inherit from normal class, because normal class has everything which is not allowed in the interface. Then it will break the concept of interface. Now, what we are trying to build as an interface, the strict rules that it cannot have the variables, it can have only the constants, and that too static constants, and it can have the methods which is the abstract. It will break it, right? Getting? So you are not allowed to extend, the interface is not allowed to extend from a class. Does it make sense or not? Everybody, does it make sense? Now we are trying to, because whose responsibility is to give body to these methods? The child class, not the interface. Because if it is interface who is extending these guys, now interface cannot give this. Interface F3 is itself an interface. This cannot give the this cannot give what's it called, the definition to these methods, because again this is an interface. No, this is called passing the buck, that if at all some class inherits from this interface F3, it is that class's job, the concrete class's job, to give definition to these methods. Okay, now if we have a class, say for example B, okay, now I'm not saying extends with the interfaces, we say implement. That's why I told Danish yesterday that we use implement with interfaces. We don't say extend, we say implement. It is same thing. You say implement or you say extend, it is basically same thing. Inherit karo, upar se inherit karo. Okay? With interfaces we use keyword implements. Implements, say int F3. I do not need to say implement F1 and F2, because whatever is in F1 and whatever is in F2, that is all in F3. Okay, whatever is in F1 and F2, that is all in F3, and now you are implementing F3. Now if I do it like this, it is showing me error. Who will tell me what is this error?
क्योंकि वो इंटरफेस है और ये क्लास है,
तो
एक्सटेंड कर रहा है इंटरफेस से सर, क्लास कर रहा है implements interface.
Yeah, that's what we should do. That is right. That's what we should do. Na? We need a concrete class which can implement whatever is in F3. Whatever F3 says by sub, मेरे पास show method है और display method है. ये मैंने नहीं कर रहा, ये आपको करना है. जो क्लास मेरा बच्चा बनेगा उसको करना पड़ेगा. ठीक है, बात में आई? एक ये मानो एक इसकी मदर है, ये इसका फादर है. ठीक है, एक ने कर्जा लिया हुआ है जेके बैंक से, दूसरे ने लिया है किसी और से. ये पैसे कौन भरेगा? जो इसका बच्चा होगा, क्लास बी. So it makes sense. Class B is a concrete class. It is the concrete class's job to define these methods, abstract methods. जैसे abstract class में हम कर रहे थे. But what is the error? Error is to implement, na? If you are a child, it is your job to implement.
पर ये multiple inheritance
इसकी instance देनी है. जो हमने इंटरफेस बनाई उनकी इंस्टेंस देनी है इस क्लास बी में.
उनकी हमें इम्प्लीमेंटेशन करनी है. यस, दानिश क्या बोल रहे थे आप?
सर ये मल्टीपल इनहेरिटेंस कराना है इंटरफेस 3 ऊपर.
इंटरफेस 3 कर रहा है मल्टीपल इनहेरिटेंस. यस, यहाँ पे because it's extending from two more interfaces. Not getting what he is saying. Okay, class B implements interface third. Now the error is that you got to implement, add unimplemented methods, because it is a class B's job to define the show and to define the display, to override that show and display. क्योंकि ये सारा जो इंटरफेस F1 में था और जो सारा F2 में था वो सारा गया किस में? इंटरफेस F3 में. और मैंने बोला कि मेरा क्लास जो है that implements F3. The first difference is I am saying not extends but implements. The concrete class, the interface extends the other interface. but concrete class implements interface. And it is same way, same thing. It means that we are inheriting from top to bottom. Parent class से हम inherit कर रहे हैं. Classes, normal classes में हम बोल रहे थे extends, लेकिन class versus interface में हम बोलते हैं implements. इतनी बात है. Technical term यहाँ पे है implements. ठीक है ना? There are many people without cameras. I don't know. I'm telling you time and again, open up your cameras. Like Ifra Farooq is here, Sophia is here, Saifullah, Farsha, Basit and
इशू आ रहा है कुछ है सर.
चलो कोई बात नहीं, आप रहने दो.
सर
बासित-
ऑन ही नहीं है आज.
नहीं हो रहा ऑन.
नहीं सर.
मेरा नाम बोलो इसको.
ऑन करने की कोशिश कर रहा हूँ इस वीडियो बटन पे, बट वो फंक्शन नहीं कर रहा है सर.
चलो कोई बात नहीं, but try.
ओके.
Because if anyone is not having camera, that means he's not in a class. So that doesn't make any sense to stay in a class. So what I am saying now is that class B is implementing interface F3. That means it is the class B's job to implement all those abstract methods, right? And not only that, class B will also have these final these constants like I and B. Now here will be I and B also. That will go as inheritance into the class B. Now if I have say class A also, which has int h, can class B also extend from class A? We cannot say now because class A is a class, normal class. B is a normal class. So if at all it has to inherit from class A also, then it will be called as extend. We cannot say implement because implement is used with the interfaces. Now, if you want class B also to extend from some other class, then the extend should come before implement. Then the extend should come before implement. Then we should write extends here, extends from A. Now it is extending from A also. Right? Now it's extending from A. Second thing is in a class B, when you try to override the contract method or abstract method, which you have to, no, obligatorily, you have to override it because it is your job if you are a child of it. If you do not write here the public, now it is a problem because it's a problem now. Why? Because in my interface, which was the show method, which I have to override, is public all the time. You write it or don't write it. If you don't write it, it's still public. But in a normal class, when you don't write anything, it is what? It is
default.
It is default. In Java, देखिए yazat increase करित. देखिए yazat करित क्या? Increase. Decrease है क्यों करित? यानी कि access है क्यों तो increase करित. अगर तो default है कहाँ चीज तो इधर में public switch चाहिए. ठीक है? मगर yazat है क्यों तो गिरेत. समझाए माँ? यानी कि अगर ये उस पब्लिक यह करने से रेस्ट्रिक्ट करित, यानी कि स्कोप है कौन रेस्ट्रिक्ट करित क्या? इंक्रीज है क्यों करित? अगर ये तना ऐसा डिफॉल्ट लिखा है तना पब्लिक यह है ना इशू किहिन क्या इसके इंक्रीज है कहाँ इसके एक्सेस और एनीथिंग अगर कन्वर्शन थे अच्छे फ्रॉम डेटा टाइप्स एंड ऑल इंक्रीज है क्यों तो करित कहाँ चीज मगर डिक्रीज है क्यों नहीं करित क्या इसके यूस ये तन चु अगर तो लिखान चाहिए मिस ये तन किहिन इंटरफेस यूस ये चु ऐसे वाइड शो अगर मैं मिस ये तन पब्लिक चु लिखान किहिन ये चु पब्लिक से लेफ्ट या मत लेफ्ट इट इज पब्लिक नॉट डिफॉल्ट मगर एक इस क्लासेस में नॉर्मल क्लासेस में कहीं लिखा छो इट इज डिफॉल्ट सो यू आर रेस्ट्रिक्टिंग द एक्सेस व्हिच इज नॉट अलाउड यू हैव टू राइट हियर एक्सप्लिसिटली पब्लिक इधन चाइल्ड ने त्राउन अगर कैसे अगर थ्रो था नहीं बन डिफॉल्ट ठीक है खुद अगर इस त्राउन सुजु पब्लिक ठीक है ना ये अगर त्राउन बन डिफॉल्ट यह है एरर इसलिए छु यह पब्लिक लिखुन जरूरी you cannot restrict the scope you can increase the scope keep that thing in mind in Java yazat gets increase decrease the kihin that is the another thing now if you have to extend another class write it first here now say for example we have interface f4 int f4 emis mos tuj kya tha मुझे emis barabar ti ye emis display वो यह मा कर प्रॉब्लम क्या कि अगर अमिस मज ती ये अमिस मज ना ये F2 मज ती F4 मज मगर बहुत लिखा ये कामा कर सा बाया INT F4 त मगर एरर हां कहें ठीक ना गोनिच कत यह कि इंटरफेस F4 ठीक है वेरिएबल्स कत करो पोतुस से फॉर एग्जांपल वेरिएबल D सेम वेरिएबल कह फिलहाल करो मेथड कत मेथड यमिस डिस्प्ले यमिस तु डिस्प्ले गो इस क्लास B ना करान इनहेरिट क्लास B implement करान इंटरफेस F3 F4 go whatever is in F4 and whatever is in F3 that goes into the class B मगर अगर हुमिस ते डिस्प्ले यमिस ते डिस्प्ले चूंकि यमिस ये डिस्प्ले मेथड अत मा बॉडी कहें यमिस ये डिस्प्ले मेथड अत मा बॉडी कहें ठीक है यह इसी हिश कथा कि यह वन चे डिस्प्ले कर क्लास बेस यह वन चे डिस्प्ले कर इम्प्लीमेंट ठीक है ती करान डिस्प्ले इम्प्लीमेंट अत मा इशू कहें ठीक है इफ देयर आर 2 टीचर्स telling you same job to do कि चे पजी फजरस वथुन बुचुस वना चे पजी फजरस वथुन तो ब्याक सर वन चे पजी फजर वथुन क्या फजरस वथनुक मेथड यह करा यह बह करा बहुत सिर्फ वनान मे थोमुत प्रोटोटाइप डिक्लेरेशन यो वो वथक चे दो फिर फजरस वथक अगे फिर तो फजरस चाहे चे मे वोन या चे वोन शफा सर वत फजरस वथक अगे फिर डू अंडरस्टैंड सो चाहे इंटरफेस F4 वन डिस्प्ले कर सा चाहे इंटरफेस F1 वन सेम डिस्प्ले कर सा यह अकी फिर सह डिस्प्ले करा तम सह कॉन्ट्रैक्ट फुलफिल ग हुत यह डिस्प्ले कर इशू ग अवे मल्टीपल इनहेरिटेंस अलाउड क्या सोन मेथड अत बॉडी हुत अगर अमिस दोन तरफन ती वैसे यह तो मतलब अकोई कत कि कर सा डिस्प्ले मेथड इम्प्लीमेंट समझ आया कत वन वेरिएबल मसल वेरिएबल मज हे कन्फ्यूजन क्या वेरिएबल्स अगर सेम नाविक वेरिएबल्स अगर क्या यानी कि यमिस I यमिस B से फॉर एग्जांपल यह I वह अमिस 2 कॉपी I गई ना इस क्लास B यह इम्प्लीमेंट कर इंटरफेस F3 सह पान कर F1 तो F2 whatever is in F1 and whatever is in F2 that goes into the F3 that means F1 मज 90 यमिस 200 यमिस मज BI B show display that is all in F3 ठीक whatever is in F1 and F2 that goes into F2 because we say extend F1 and F2 the interface F3 has such extend F1 to F2 whatever is in F1 and F2 that goes all in the F3 ठीक है गो F3 मज कुछ वेरिएबल अमिस I बेमिस B बेस मेथड शो तो डिस्प्ले मगर एब्स्ट्रैक्ट ठीक अम पे इंटरफेस F2 अमिस तो I गो यमिस मज वोत ना इंटरफेस F3 मज I होरुक बे वोत F4 मज ते I वोत ना अमिस वथन 2 I क्या वथ भाई अमिस वथन 2 I अगर अमिस पनुन ते I तेल चल अमिस ग्रेन क्या int I is equal to say for example 90 बताओ क्या बदल वैल्यू क्या 8 लिखस मन छन अमिस ग्रेन क्या अगर बे अमिस ऑब्जेक्ट बनाओ क्लास B ऑब्जेक्ट बनाओ येतन अच्छा ना अमिक मेन कतन क्लास B ऑब्जेक्ट बनाओ येतन क्लास B ऑफ टाइप B बनाओ ऑब्जेक्ट OB equals to new B ठीक है because system dot out dot println इस ऑब्जेक्ट बनो में OB dot I कर print ठीक है it will print 8 it doesn't have any issue क्या इसकी ये कर पानुन हम गसन hide ये कर 8 print क्या इसकी हमसे ना पानुन ते 8 मगर हमसे 2 कॉपी I अख कॉपी छे वसमस केम सन्स इंटरफेस 4 सन्स यम ज़ात ब्या कॉपी छे वसमस केम सन्स ब्या वसमस हम सन्स यह I90 ना वसमस 2 कॉपी छे वसमस तो अगर अमिस पन I आसे कहें वह गि कन्फ्यूज मे कुछ I कर प्रिंट क्या 2 ना अगर अमिस OB.I वन वह प्रॉब्लम OBs of I is ambiguous. You show ambiguous. Kya shu? Kya ke amshana mas copy I. Kachat samjhi ma? I'm going to allow just ये कि tel chase करूँ कम इधर method create करूँ या मज़ भी ये ob.i print करूँ ठीक है for example इस करो इस कहीं क्या इस करो इधर ob.show was call सो करना उन्हें return I ये मिस मौसम ना show ती method ते क्या या मज़ करना ब return करना उन ये return I या return चुन में आज की void थोड़े मगर sop कर भी Control Z ये करना उन sop है थी system.out.println I कर भी print ठीक है मिस क्या गो अच्छा I शुन फिलहाल अगर भी मिस I इतन था फिलहाल ठीक system out of println I कर सब prints यानी कि ये चुन में करूँ simple call ob.show वस्तेले मैं चुन में sop करूँ क्या इल्बी करान चुस ये हाई 8 आराम सान है ना हो ना कैसे मिशना पालन 8 वहां अगर भाई बंद करान चुस ठीक है वहां चुद वहां एक आई कुछ मगर ना ambiguity किस आई ना ज कॉपी अक्चु इंटरफेस F3 पे आमुत बेआक शामुत इंटरफेस F4 पे वहां चुस बे F4 करान कि बितल चुमिस लेखुन इतन कि ना बाया मैं कर सकता इंटरफेस int F4.i ठीक मोकले ambiguity हुई मचना ज कॉपी अक्चु इंटरफेस F4 आई बेआक यम सुंद आई अगर मैं छोड़ वन आई प्रिंट कर गस कंफ्यूज कुस हिउ आई और अगर मैं पनुन आई छु तेलस नहीं कंफ्यूजन कहीं क्या तेल गसन हम गसन हाइड यह पनुन ठीक तेलस एम्बिग्यूटी कहीं मगर अगर मैं पनुन आई छु कहीं वह गि परेशान हम सुन आई यपर तो यह इंटरफेस F4 आई सो तथ सूरत मज तुम एग्जैक्टली लेखुन कि इंटरफेस F4 आई या इंटरफेस F3 आई दिस जहत अगर मैं इंटरफेस नसा इंटरफेस F3 आई दिस नसा F4 क्या F3 आई दी मैं क्या ज कॉपी है ना यह है तेरे F3 आई 90 समझा वहाँ little time left and we will do the last thing in it कि when you see show method है ना you see show method cut it बजन लेखिए क्लास AS मस कत मस लेखने यात मस क्या क्लास BS मस लेखने बे लेखने क्लास BS मस ही मैं लेखि कत मस क्लास AS मस ये करे में suffice कैसे अगर class B छु if there is a class B and it has to implement interface F3 now F3 is saying that into the F3 F2 and F1 has gone into the F3 there is show method which is gone into the F3 which is here yeah इसमें empty थो but it has ना आत्मा चुना show method यानी कि अगर मैं implement करान चुस F3 that means I have to override the show method ठीक है मगर बुझ नहीं चुका ना and I am doing it where I am doing it in class A I am doing it in class A मगर चूंकि class B ना extend करा A so whatever is in A that will go into the class B yes ना मैं कोन पान override किया मगर मैं ना होर वटित केम सुन मैं उन A मजवट किसी A एस मज void show so कैसे inherit येती so गुना as good कि मैं कोर override समझा यह यह एरर की मगर यह पब्लिक लेखुन अगर मैं पब्लिक लेख कहीं सो गई प्रॉब्लम क्या कि उसमें ओवरराइड करुन हुत मेथड सह पब्लिक सह पब्लिक एब्स्ट्रैक्ट अगर मैं शो ये मेथड सह सह पब्लिक एब्स्ट्रैक्ट शो ठीक है अगर बह ओवरराइड बस क्लास A शो लेखान यह वस यमिस मज BS मज मगर यह मा गई हम सज ओवरराइड कहीं सह पब्लिक इसलिए मे लेखुन पब्लिक जरूरी तो मे प्रॉब्लम तेल कहीं क्या अगर क्लास A मज सह ओवरराइडिंग मेथड लिख क्या सह वस यमिस मज BS मज एक्सटेंड कर ठीक है so in that scenario it will suffice me the contract कि by if you are my child you have to obey the contract समझा ये वहां ना are you getting so we are having here all kind of scenarios what is happening the time is running out I will join for 5 minutes more so that basically we will we will make it perfect about the concept. फिलहाल मेरा ये ऊपर का गायब ही हो गया कहीं पे, एक second. Yeah, we have less than 1 minute left. So anyways, what I'm saying is that I am having here, if it is, as you could see here, come on bro, annote. I am implementing this a multiple inheritance. Firstly, this is